Welcome to another edition of Buc What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Super Heavyweight. And I have a special guest tonight, Michael Pless. He's one of the co-writers for Real Bucs Talk. I love talking with this guy. If you can, follow him on Twitter. You'll see his Twitter handle here shortly. It was a pleasure to kind of listen to him and get his insight as well as his co-writer's insight on what the Bucs could possibly do. And I tell you what, they really hit on a lot of stuff. If you can get a chance, go back to some of my previous podcasts, you'll hear where they were making some predictions that pretty much stuck. And we have players that we ended up with players that they had mentioned well before the draft. So these are guys that are very football savvy and know what they're doing. And Michael, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me, and tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and what you have going on right now.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. Hey, Bug Nation. Yeah, I mean, Real Bucs Talk, we're just everything about the players, the coaches, give you that inside look at the Buccaneers, and we really give you just behind the scenes look at everything, whether it's, players that you never heard of, it could be the star players, players that are on the bottom of the depth chart. So we break it all down, and we're just getting ready for training camp. We're looking forward to that. But we got a lot of big things coming up. So check us out at Real Bucs Talk.
Yeah, like I said, I'm really excited. The football season's almost here. What can you say? I think the Bucs have upgraded in a lot of positions. And what we're going to talk about tonight is something that I know that almost every Buc fan out there, if you've been watching the Bucs last season, the 2015 season, you have to be questioning the defense. And
Right.
For me, I watch NFL Network. I watch the four-letter network. I used to. And, the big question was, what's going on with the defense? Have the Bucs done enough to improve on the defense? And what you saw last season were multiple issues, whether it was the secondary, whether it was the pass rush, whether it was back-breaking penalties, which I keep harping on, and it's something that we've seen. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on offense, they finally turned it around. They have their franchise quarterback. They had a very good running game. They were limited with the wide receiver position, but they were still able to do quite a bit more than they did the previous year. So I know a lot of fans are saying, hey, we want to see that from the defense as well. And to you, I'm going to ask you up front, what changes do you see, on paper, that the Bucs have made so far in the offseason going into the 2016 season?
Well, I'll start right off with the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff right away is huge upgrade, giant upgrade, because I think Lovie, no disrespect to Lovie Smith and his staff, but unfortunately they were stuck in a defense where it was just too much of the old school game, and you have to adjust to this new passing game where you got to put pressure on the quarterback. You can't do this bend, don't break defense, because unfortunately, these quarterbacks are too good. They're going to find a way to pick you apart in this cover two defense. You got to mix it up. You got to be able to put pressure on the quarterback and force turnovers. And if you don't do that, you're not going to have much success. I'll go to the secondary. I think the secondary is much improved just because of adding, you get a Vernon Hargraves, you get a Brent Grimes, they added Josh Robinson, who's another good young corner. So they have depth there now, and now you add in, plus you have Jonathan Banks and Alteron Werner returning. So that's an instant upgrade. I think along the linebacking core, getting Daryl Smith in there, who's going to bring a veteran presence. Go down the line, Quan Alexander, Levante David. And then the defense line, I think overall is just more improved from a depth standpoint, bringing in Robert Ayers. You bring in a Noah Spence. You finally have a healthy Gerald McCoy. So I think there's room definitely to make big strides this year. Again, is that all going to come together this year? You still don't know. I mean, they're still learning a new defense. So there's question marks there. You got to stay healthy. So again, it's just kind of wait and see. But I think they'll definitely be much improved.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with that. I think the free agency moves that we saw this year are players that are football players. You don't have people that were playing in reserve positions or backup positions that you're bringing in and you're paying big money to. You're seeing players that are good or efficient in their position, and they can step in and make a noticeable difference right away. Would you agree? Would you agree with that statement?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Brent Grimes is an instant starter. He's been the Pro Bowl the last 3 years. Daryl Smith, again, one of the top linebackers in the game. You bring in a Robert Ayers, who had a breakout season last year with 9.5 sacks. So adding those three, and just with the overall talent that we already had here in place, you look at a lot of these guys last year were good football players. Unfortunately, I think scheme, preparation, and just mixing that together, it just didn't work. And unfortunately, you had a lot of players that were out of place and didn't really know where to be at all times when it came to Sundays, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, and you could go back and watch the game film and see for yourself where players were they almost looked confused or unprepared for the game, and that kind of goes back to coaching. And I saw a lot of breakdowns that you normally see during the preseason, and those type of things get cleaned up prior to the regular season. So I'm hoping that with the new defensive administration that they've brought in, you have a lot more accountability, you have a lot more preparedness. And these guys, from everything they've said, I know you can only go by their word, but people like Quan Alexander, people like Clint McDonald, even Gerald McCoy talking about wanting to get better, wanting to be better. And, that's something that fans can truly look forward to, is seeing players that do want to get better. And I think this defense is on the right path. I think you've seen major upgrades across the board. And the inclusion of a Noah Spence, bringing a guy like that in, and when you hear the coaching staff talk about what a phenomenal player he is so far, you just can't wait to see him get on the field and show what he can do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Noah Spence has me really excited. I think he's got very high potential. But yeah, I mean, the defensive line overall, but just, again, I go back to the coaching staff. I'm really excited. You bring in a Mike Smith, who he's been around the league for a long time, been a head coach. He's won a lot of games. He's led great defenses. And then you look at, their assistant coaches, and Jay Hayes, who's a great defensive line coach, Mark Duffner, John Hoke. All these guys are they're really experienced. And you compare that to Lovie Smith's staff, where, yeah, he's got Hardy Nickerson, who's a big name, but not really a lot of coaching experience. And then you look at, the secondary coaches. They had 3 secondary coaches last year, which was unfortunate. And that caused a lot of issues back there, because certain guys wanted, to do things their way. And it caused a lot of commotion with the secondary players, and it was kind of a mess. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, there was so much inconsistency, especially in the secondary, where you had a different combination of cornerbacks. And I've always found with any level of football, it takes consistency to develop a solid secondary. So when you have a different pair of cornerbacks week in and week out, you can't ever develop that consistency. And sometimes there are some players that require a lot of reps in order to get into the flow of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, benching Alteron Werner and then the whole ordeal with Jonathan Banks, I thought that was wrong. No offense to, Jude, I don't know how to say his last name, but I know he was playing well, but Jonathan Banks the year before was one of our best players on defense, and you put him on the bench, and I just I just disagree, and it just wasn't good at all.
Yeah, it wasn't. And
No.
those kind of the stats don't lie and the tape don't lie. And you
Hmm.
can take both sides of it. I've heard people like Raheem Morris, stats are for losers, but stats kind of, I know there are intangibles, but sometimes stats give you a different take on what exactly is going on in the game. And
Hmm.
one thing I sent you something earlier, and
Hmm.
I found this really interesting, talking about the team or the defense third down opponent efficiency.
Hmm.
And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were ranked 30th in the league in opponents being on that third down and being able to convert. So you're looking at a opponent third down efficiency of 46%, and that is
Hmm.
atrocious.
Uh,
You have to get
Hideous.
guys off the field on third down in order to give your offense a chance to score points, unless you're a scoring defense, which the Bucs showed last year that they really were not. And
Hmm.
for those that don't really understand what that means, I can break this down. There were 211 third down attempts against the Buccaneers defense. 211. And out of that, 97 were converted. That's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah,
I mean,
that's yuck.
yeah,
It's
that
disgusting.
is huge. Yeah, it really is. And
Mhm.
the you look at some of the teams that were worse than the Bucs. You had the Jacksonville Jaguars, and
Mhm.
they were 46.3%. So
Mhm.
they were pretty close. And then you had the New York Giants, who
Mhm.
were 47%. So Tampa, that defense didn't do what they needed to do. And
Mhm.
I don't know about you. I don't know how far you've really been looking in depth at the Bucs defense, but
Mhm.
I can almost go back to 2011, 2012, where I really started noticing the Bucs defense. And this is no slight to Gerald McCoy. He just really never had the help. And
Mhm.
that's, we can save that for another time. But what I
Mhm.
saw was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers blowing leads,
Mhm.
and it was continuous. It was the quarterback, whether it was Josh Freeman or Mike Glennon or whoever, would have a lead and walk off the field, and basically the defense couldn't hold that lead. And we
Mhm.
saw that it wasn't consistent, but you saw it a lot of times in games that they should have won or could have won and didn't do that and ended up
Right.
blowing the lead. So this has been an ongoing issue, but I noticed it more, and I don't know if it was because of the penalties that I noticed it more, but last season was really painful to watch at times.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can just go down the line. Washington, the Washington game last year. You're up 24-0. You lose that. Um, you go
The
to the
Texans.
Giants. Yeah, the Texans game. We pretty much, winning up down the field and had a chance to win that game, but we couldn't put it in the end zone. Just a lot of bad losses, towards the end, and Dirk Cutter goes back. It's all about finishing games, and you got to be able to finish. You got to be able to put the ball in the end zone. And you got to be able to keep them out of it. So that's something to look forward to this year. We need to learn how to finish games for
Oh,
sure.
most definitely.
Hmm.
That's going to be huge this year. And
Yeah.
once again, you have a guy like a Mike Smith who knows defense. He
Hmm.
is a defensive minded person. And what he was able to do at Jacksonville,
Hmm.
you saw glimpses of what we could possibly do here in Tampa. So
Hmm.
I'm excited. I know, we, as we talked about before, we've got Quanback suspension. He's going to be healthy. Clint
Hmm.
McDonald is 100% healthy. He's ready to go.
Right.
Gerald McCoy is healthy. So we've got a lot of players, and you listen to some of the interviews with people like
Hmm.
Altron Werner or Jonathan Banks. and they're re-energized because they have a chance to start now, or they have a chance to come in and make plays. So I think that this is going to be good for the defense. And another reason I say that is they managed to keep a lot of the defense from last year. Normally, with a coaching change, you see a lot of turnover with players, which Tampa has experienced, as you well know. Tampa has experienced with Gruden going into Raheem Morris, going into Greg Schiano, going into Lovie Smith. So we've seen a lot of our base players, are players that we were building that foundation with, get turned over and start over again. So I think we're in a good place. I think we have a general manager who is a good personnel guy, who's able to show, what he can do. He is in full control. This is his first offseason being in full control of the roster. So, that's another thing to really be excited about, to see what he's able to do with the full reins of the team.
Yeah, Gene. I think that just shows, how good this roster is already. That we don't have a lot of turnover on defense. There's good players on this defense. We have plenty of talent. Bucs fans, go back and look at my stories from the beginning in January on Real Bucs Talk, and look at all the things we have on Jason Light. The guy is a great general manager. We're really fortunate to have him. He just knows football. He knows how to find players. And you look at Jack Smith, who's going to have a big season, I think, this year. Howard Jones, another defensive end who's coming up the ranks. You look at, finding J.R. Sweezy, getting Ali Marpet. The list goes on and on. But yeah, Bucs fans, if you want to look at, get more info on Jason Light, check us out. And go back to those stories in early January, February.
So, I know we're talking about defense, and with that being said, I wanted to see who, other than Noah Spence, which we talked about Noah Spence way before the draft when I first had you and you and your partner on. Who are you looking forward to seeing this season and seeing what they can do?
I just wrote an article about Bradley McDougall. I'm really excited about what he's going to bring. I think he's on the verge of really breaking out this year. I think he's going to really make an impact. He's got a lot of talent. Last year was his only first full year as a starter. And he put up pretty decent numbers considering the mess he had, in the secondary with the coaching and the scheme wise. I think they're going to use him more as a matchup safety where he can play against the tight end, play against, in the slot. I think he's got that kind of talent where he can be really versatile, be kind of that roamer in the backfield for the secondary. So I'm excited to see him. Other guys I'm excited about, there's a lot of guys I'm excited about on this defense. I'll probably go with the rookies. Any of the rookies, Ryan Smith, the safety, I really love him. I have a lot of articles about Ryan Smith. Noah Spence, of course. Even some of the undrafted guys, you could look at like Luke Rhodes, who's a up-and-coming linebacker. We picked him up. He's been making some noise here in OTAs and minicamp. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. Probably, I'm trying to think who else. I'll just go with those guys. Again, Howard Jones. I really like Howard Jones. I think he's going to be something to watch for.
You kind of stole my thunder there, because that's a guy that I really, really like. And if they 100% healthy, I think that we got something big with him. And it's nice to see that we have somewhat of a rotation. And see, as Bucs fans, we've watched the Bucs week in and week out. We have an idea of who these players are and what their potential could be. But anybody outside of the Tampa Bay area wouldn't be able to tell you about a Howard Jones or a Bradley McDougall or a Jude Abri or Jude from our secondary guy. Jonathan Banks. There's just a lot of players that I feel like coaching, if they're coached right, I think that they could be impact players.
Yeah, not even to mention, we forgot to mention William Golston,
Yes.
Akeem Spence. Those two guys right there they don't put up maybe the stats, but they make a lot of impact plays as far as,
And
helping other players.
you might be surprised. I think this is a contract year for Golston, at least. I don't know
For both,
about
yeah. Yeah,
it
for
is
both players.
contract year,
Yeah.
so we might see something,
Yeah.
I believe that Tampa was a better team than the 6-win team that you saw last year. And I think with special teams, with influx in the kicking game, I think that kind of hurt us. Special teams, there are a lot of questions that I still have, even with kick return and that kind of thing. But we can save that for another day. I really want to, kind of focus on this defense, especially because a lot of fans out there, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, have a lot of questions about the defense. And where I want to start out with is Gerald McCoy. What is it going to take for Gerald? What do we need to see from Gerald McCoy to really make this defense successful? His part of this, what do we need to see from him for this defense to be successful?
I think he just needs to keep doing what he's doing, just be consistent. I think the main thing is he's got to stay healthy. That's first and foremost. But I think the guy does a lot. I mean, you look at last season, he did a lot. Even he had the torn rotator cuff, and he was still getting pressure on the quarterback. So I don't think he's got to change anything. I think he's got to just keep doing what he's doing, be consistent, be that leader that he is on the defense. And again, he's going to have the help around him. He's going to have an actual rotation now where he can, get some breather and not play the whole game. So he's going to have a rotation where he can be fresh coming in that fourth quarter. And that's where you're going to need him, because fourth quarter, we're going to need him to put pressure on the quarterback and make plays and finish these games so we can win some in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, along that defensive line, we have Clint McDonald coming back. And I don't know how much you really watched him last season, but I thought he had a good season up until he was injured. How do you see Clint McDonald fitting into this defensive front line?
He's going to love this defense because he'll be able to attack, and it's very similar to the Seattle defense where they allow their inside pass rushers just get up the field, and I think that's what it's going to make McCoy and McDonald, all the interior guys are going to love it because they don't have to. It's not really gap control; it's more head on the guards per se, and they can just attack, just get in there and penetrate. So I think they're going to really love that. And McDonald, I think, is key. I mean, that guy is one of the big leaders in that locker room, and he means a lot to his teammates. And having him on the field is like having another coach on the field pretty much. And he makes a big impact. He might not put up the stats, but he can get you, 4 to 5 sacks a year and really make, good plays in the run game and make it easier for Gerald McCoy for sure.
Yeah. And when your interior is working, that means that your outside guys get to go hunt. So
right.
I think that is what I'm excited about. Jacquez Smith, Howard Jones, Noah Spence, these guys who can get after the quarterback. And especially Jacquez Smith, I was really hoping that he would have been 100% healthy all season. I think he was a difference maker. He has a nose for the ball, and wherever the play is, you always hear his name called, almost as much as like a Levante David. So I think that, if he's 100% healthy, I think he's definitely going to be a huge contributor for this defense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Now we kind of talked about the front line, and we have some idea of who you can look at with Noah Spence, Clint McDonald, Will Golston, Jacquez Smith, Howard Jones, players like that are able to get in and rotate. And I'm sorry if I missed anybody, you can definitely fill in here. But
Robert Ayers.
Robert Ayers, there you go, and that's a name that we should definitely be remembering here. So you look at that front line, and let's kind of take a step back, and we'll kind of look at the linebackers and a guy who I always call Mr. No Plays Off, Lavonte David. Lavonte David is that guy who is always in there making plays, at least once or twice or three times or whatever throughout the game. He's always making plays. So Lavonte David is a guy that we all know about, and I'm glad that he's getting that exposure through the rest of the NFL world. I think this long overdue and very well deserved. So we have Lavonte David, and now we have Quan Alexander back from suspension. I feel like that right there is a big boost to this defense. And, we're not even talking about the front line. We're just talking about the linebacker core. So what are your thoughts on the linebacker core? Do you think there's room for improvement? Or what do you think of what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have available right now?
I'll just say it's going to be blitzes, lots of blitzes, and it's going to be exciting. A lot of big plays I expect from the linebacking core, just because they'll be able to play fast, pretty much, which is big. I mean, you got to be able to play fast, and I think Lavonte David, Quan are really going to like this defense because it'll allow them to have that versatility where they can get after the quarterback, get after the run game, make plays in the backfield. And that's what you're looking for from your linebackers. And again, I think they'll also be able to make plays in the passing game, whether it's matching up against a, premier tight end or getting on the running back. So I think it's going to be where they're going to have more versatility instead of, compared to last year where they kind of had to sit back and not attack as much as they would have liked to. These guys are really aggressive players. And then you look at Daryl Smith, who I think is just going to be that veteran coach, that leader for these guys, someone they can look to and count on. And again, I think Daryl Smith said it a couple weeks ago, I think in an interview, he's going to be kind of like a fullback on defense for Lavonte David and just open up the holes for David so he can, make plays in the backfield. So that gets me jacked up. I'm excited about it. Can't say much more about the group. And then, if you look at the reserves, they got some really good reserves. I like Josh Keys. I like Luke Rhodes, like I said. I'm probably missing some other. I'm trying to think if there's any other guys, but
I've heard you mention Luke Rhodes, and what is it about Luke Rhodes that really gets you hyped up?
Just his instincts. He's just a natural. He can make tackles. Really athletic, smart player. Very similar. I don't want to compare him to that, but he's a really smart football player and a coach's player. He loves to get coached, and I think he can make an impact on this team, especially in special teams.
And you know what you see, and I kind of take this back to Jason Light, is you have a lot of players with high football IQs.
Yeah,
true
exactly.
Football players, students of the game that are always trying to get better. For a while, we had players that, I don't know. You just, you can't really put a whole lot into, them being here.
Right.
But I really
Daquan
believe
Bowers.
Exactly. Exactly. But what you see right now is a team that's, it seems like they're all dedicated. Everybody showed up for OTAs. Everybody showed up for mini camp. And anybody that was physically able to practice was out there doing their thing.
Right.
And
right.
Nobody's holding out. Everybody's excited to get in here and get it done, especially on defense. And I'm excited. That really makes me excited. And, I don't know. I just, it's so refreshing. I mean, I know we were all excited when Lovey came in, blah, 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 blah. We saw how that went. And it seems like
I wasn't excited.
And there are some fans that felt that way, that that this wasn't the move. But I don't know. I look at the coaches, because I was excited. I couldn't stand Greg Schiano. I'm a University of Kansas graduate. That's my school. But when I when I was in Tampa, I started going to USF games, and they would always play Rutgers.
Right.
And I hated Greg Schiano. Hated it. I always thought he was a subpar coach. I thought he made subpar play calls, and he had no business in the NFL. And that's my personal opinion. The whole rush to victory formation stuff, I mean, yeah, whatever. But that was a guy that was like the worst move that could have ever been made. So when they announced that he was getting fired and Lovie Smith was coming in, I was excited. And, I know, like yourself, there are a lot of fans that were like, I don't know. We're still thinking about that. We're not sure what we have with this guy. And, here we are, fast forward, new head coach, new defensive coordinator. And once again, it's something to get excited about. I think this team is better than their record showed. I think this team has the potential to upset a lot of teams this season that everybody is looking past Tampa. Just kind of like what you saw with the Philadelphia Eagles. I watched a lot of podcasts. I watched a lot of rival teams podcasts for, teams that we're going to be facing. And I found that everybody overlooked Tampa. But, we had a rookie quarterback, rookie offensive line. You just didn't know what you were going to see. And I don't know, for some reason, I have a little bit more confidence in this season than I've had, in the past. And you can watch my podcast and see what I had to say. I try to stay as positive as I can about the situation. So, I wanted consistency, and I'm hoping that what we have with Dirk Cutter will give us that consistency that we need.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the same feel. I mentioned this to you before. It's a different feel. It's all about football. There's no BS. There's no drama. No, yeah, exactly. There's no there's no distractions. I want to say
they're all about business. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like these guys they're all about getting at it.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about business. How can we get better? Again, Jameis Winston, enough said. I mean, the guy is leading the way. And we just put a story out there recently about the culture change, and you can see it's changing. I mean, under his leadership, this team is, it just feels like, we're going in the right direction. And it just feels like we're about to break out. And I think it's going to be this season.
Yeah, I agree. And this is allegedly the hardest we have like the fifth hardest schedule in the NFL. Tampa does.
Yeah. But I mean, can't go by that.
Yeah. You still have to go out and play the games.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, case in point, you look at what Carolina did. They lost their number one wide receiver. They weren't expected to do what they did, and they did what they did. So, anything is possible. You still have to go out and play the games. I was on a podcast for the Carolina Panthers talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the feel throughout the NFC South is very dismissive of Tampa. Like, they'll be good in a couple of years, but you have a general manager who wants to win now, and that's key. That's very key, and it starts from the top and works its way down to the bottom. And when you have a general manager who set the expectations like he has, then you have a head coach who is not taking any crap from anybody. Case in point, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. I thought that was a good measuring stick for what we're going to see from this coaching staff. He's a guy that doesn't beat around the bush. He says what he's going to say. And I think that he can turn this team around. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes all back to accountability, and I think this team is starting to be accountable. And you look at the quarterback, you look at the head coach, those guys, they want to win, and they're doing everything they can to make sure this team's going to win. And when you have guys that are putting in the work and being accountable and doing their job, and if you don't do your job, then you're going to be thrown out of practice, or you're going to be let go, or you're going to be playing somewhere else. They're not going to put up with this crap. They're tired of losing. This team is tired of losing. They want to win. You look at Kenny Bell just recently had an interview. He said the biggest thing he wants to do this year is win. He wants to win with these guys. I think that says it all right there. He doesn't care about stats. It's not about the numbers. It's about winning games.
And kind of going, and that's a great point. That's a great segue, because I've always been a stat guy. I don't know why. I don't know what it was, but I've always thought, man, stats tell some of the story, not all the story, because you always have intangibles, and I mentioned that before. But stats are huge. And I don't know. Now, after Lovie Smith was fired, and you listen to Jason Licht's interview, it's like winning. I mean, that's the ultimate stat, is wins and losses. That's the stat that us as fans genuinely care about. And that's the stats that ownership cares about, because that's going to put more butts in seats. That's going to sell tickets. That's going to sell concessions. It all works out. Winning covers everything. You can go back to when the Buccaneers were winning back in the early 2000s, and you couldn't get a ticket. I remember as a kid, trying to go to a Bucs game, and you can get a ticket. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to get up at noon and go to the game and get a ticket. Cheap, real cheap. They may even give you one. And then you fast forward to the late 90s, going into the 2000s, and the Bucs are winning. That was the hottest ticket, and it was almost impossible to get seats. I promise you. That was the craziest thing. I mean, to watch that unfold, it was just amazing. Going to a game, and you got to get there early so you can tailgate. Got to get there early so you can get in, because the crowds are going to be crazy. And it just was a good time. And I know a lot of fans that were just starting to become Bucs fans can remember that, remember those times where the Bucs were winning. And that's kind of what we want to get back to. I mean, being happy about winning 2 home games that's horrible. You should never be happy about winning only 2 home games or whatever. That's something that has to change. And that changes with the culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, you got to win all your home games. The expectation, you win 8 games at home, you go undefeated at home, you go 500 on the road, you're in the playoffs. That's the key, you can't, we got to get our home field back, but absolutely going back to what I was saying with the culture changing. Again, it starts up top with, Jason Licht and his staff, Dirk Cutter, Jameis Winston, those 3 right there. They care about winning, and they're going to do everything they can. And we got other players on this squad that are jumping on a board, and they're ready to go. I think it's going to be something. It's going to be something good to watch this year. It's going to be exciting. Again, going back to the defense, I'll just say this. We have the rotation on the defensive line. Finally, you got an 8-man rotation. Jay Hayes is going to rotate these guys in and out. So I think that's going to be good. They're not going to be tired at the end of the game. Linebackers, again, I said it. They're pretty much set. The three starters are legit starters, impact players, and I think the secondary has a bright potential future with Ryan Smith, Vernon Hargraves. You got Jonathan Banks still, so a lot of potential back there. And then with the veterans and Werner and Grimes, so definitely have the potential.
And while we're talking about that, what are your thoughts on the safety position, because I know
Mhm.
that during the draft you heard a lot of fans asking questions about the safety position. How are we sitting in the safety position? Do we need to be panicking, or
No.
let's talk about some of the players that we're going to see on Sundays in that safety, whether it's the free safety or strong safety.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should panic. I think we have a good players back there. You look at Chris Conti, Major Wright. You're going to see them a lot. Bradley McDougall, again, I think is going to have a lot of impact. He's going to be a guy I think that's going to get a lot more time and more responsibility. And then you look at the younger guys and Keith Tandy, who I think is really good player that doesn't get talked about a lot. When he gets in there, all he does is make plays. So I think he's going to be a guy.
And
Yeah,
that's a
go
guy
ahead.
that I really wish would get more playing time. I wish he would have gotten more playing time. I think that he's a game changer as well. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's a guy that I really personally like, and I hope that he will get more playing time this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, what I was saying about the younger guys and Ryan Smith, who I think is probably going to be taken along slowly. I don't think he will get in maybe not too much playing time. They might use him in certain packages where they have more defensive backs on the field, like in a dime or nickel situation. That's basically where you have 5 defensive backs or more on the field. So I think they'll have him in there in that way, and then special teams most likely. But as far as safety concerns, I don't think we should be concerned. I think there's a lot of good talent back there. Again, I keep saying this. It all goes back to the scheme and the staff from last year. There's just too much confusion, and it's hard when you have confusion on the field. It's hard to execute. It's hard to play fast, and if you can't play fast in the NFL, you're gonna have problems, and it showed.
Yeah, it's like they were overthinking things, and
Absolutely.
that was probably more as frustrating for them as it was for us as fans to watch this happen. Where you've got guys that, well, I'm not sure if I need to blitz or I need to
Right.
jump back into coverage, or I'm not sure what I need to do, and not being able to defend the slant, which is probably the most basic pass pattern out there, was it gave me gray hairs. I'll be honest with you. It was just that frustrating, because you're on the edge of your seat every single game, every single play, worried, oh, we're going to give up the big play here. And I watched the Dallas Cowboys game, and I'm not going to harp too much more. Once we get into the regular season, I won't, but I can only go by what I've seen. But I was watching the Dallas Cowboys game, and when you've got a D-back playing 10 yards off of Des Bryant, I didn't even know what to say. I didn't even know where to begin to say, because I'm looking, and I'm like, 1 yard, 2, 3. What is he doing? You got to be up on this guy. And fortunately, it was Matt Castle as the quarterback, because honestly, if it could have been Tony Romo, it may have been a whole nother situation. But at the end of the day, Tampa 6 wins, should have been 10, in my personal opinion. Should have been a 10-win team. And I honestly believe, man, and people have crucified me throughout the NFC South for saying this, I believe this team is going to be better than an 8-win team this season. I really believe that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, what you're saying about what was it? Coaching. Yeah. I'm sorry. What were you saying earlier? The coaching.
As far as the coaching, last year's coaching, or how the scheme was, or
No, I'm sorry. I lost myself. Hold on.
This is related to
I'll
defense.
just say this. Yeah, I'll go back to what I was saying about the defense. The defense is going to be fine. I mean, again, I'll just say it again. We have a lot of talent on this team. And I think we're going to be a lot better. Again, the coaching staff has improved. And I think it's going to be something special again.
Absolutely, man. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot argue with you there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talked about the defense, we talked about the line, and I don't know, maybe I don't know how I know special teams has its own place. I really kind of push special teams back towards the defense a little bit. And we have a little bit of time, so I kind of wanted to talk about the defense or the special teams. And we won't talk about the kicker yet. I won't get into him yet. I know that's a subject of ridicule that Bucs fans have to hear from, and I'm really hoping this guy shuts everybody up. But it's for another time.
He will.
Kick return and special teams on defensive special teams. Do you see? Are there any players that kind of stand out to you that can really help Tampa to win games? Because special teams is all part of it. I know with the rule changes in kicking, I won't get into kicker right now, but you know, we lost Bobby Rainey, and I'm not sure who's going to pick up the slack. Who's that lead dog that we're looking at who can just come in and help us in that position? You know, I would love to see a kick returner come in and score some points. I've seen Kenny Bell. I've heard his name mentioned. I've heard even heard maybe Hart, was it? No, it wasn't Hargraves. There's a couple of people that who could potentially be that kick returner. So what are your thoughts on that position?
I think, the leaders right now, I would say, is probably Adam Humphries, and then maybe Charles Sims even, I think, as a kick returner. But I think Humphries and then Kenny Bell, again, obviously he's another leader. So I think it's going to be a good battle to watch this play out. And then even a dark horse like Ryan Smith. I think Ryan Smith could be a guy that could be a dangerous returner, someone that can, make people miss. Maybe Hargraves, but I don't think they're going to use him on special teams quite yet. Most likely they're going to use him as like a gunner or, someone to get down the field and make plays tackling. But as far as return, I think the leader right now is probably Adam Humphries for sure.
Yeah. And, there's another name, and I didn't really want to try not to key too much on offense because, we can say that for another show. But I just feel like fans need to know that on defense, we have a lot of capable players. And if they're put in the right scheme and if they're coached up right, if they have that right mentality to not have the back-breaking penalties that we saw and, converting those, getting those 3 and outs, that's going to be key for Tampa. And I've kind of got my measuring stick right now from last season is my measuring stick on defense. And it can't get worse than what we saw last season. And, just with that being said, I kind of wanted to take a minute to kind of go over some of the leaders on this team in the different positions and just get your thoughts on it on both offense and defense. And what I'm going to do, I am going to start on the defensive side of the ball first. And Levante David led the team in tackles, and he had 147 tackles, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 interceptions, and 4 hurries. I really do believe that Levante David can improve on those numbers, and I believe we're going to see that next season. I think getting a taste of being in the Pro Bowl and finally making it there, I think that we will see Levante David in the Pro Bowl, barring any injuries.
Yeah, I would agree. Again, I said earlier, I think he's going to be allowed to make more plays in this defense. He's going to be able to blitz the quarterback more. He'll have the chance to get, put up some sack numbers, make some plays as far as forcing fumbles. And again, I think he'll be able to get his hands on more passes and make plays as a interceptor as well. So yeah, I think easily he can and more tackles for loss too, because they're going to allow these linebackers to be more aggressive. I think he could put up a season to where I think he had it in, I think it was 2012, 2013. He had a really good season that year. So I think he'll put up similar numbers to that for sure.
Yeah. And next up on the defensive leaders list is Daryl Smith. I know he didn't play here, but you're looking at 121 tackles, 3 sacks, 1 interception, and 4 hurries. So that's added defense right there that I think he can be a impact player right off the bat. So Daryl Smith is another guy to look forward to, and I know that he's somebody that you guys really like as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, he's going to be a coach on the field. He's put up those numbers the last 3 years, so I think he can definitely do it again, if not better. So just a big addition for this team, a well-needed addition. This defense needed a veteran presence, and they definitely have that now in all 3 levels. So I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. And then I'm just going to go up to the number 3, Quan Alexander, who, despite missing 4 games for suspension, had 93 tackles, 3 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, 2 interceptions, and 3 hurries. So he was doing his thing up until he got, suspended. And I can't say enough about this kid. I overlooked him. I slept on him. I'll be the first one to admit that. I was not talking about him after he was drafted, but he's made a believer out of me, and I'm happy to have him on this defense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was the MVP of this defense last year. The guy is just a great kid. Loves football. I mean, he just loves the game, and he's just going to get better. When his knowledge, I mean, he's just keep learning, and when he understands offensive schemes and how to adapt the defense to the offense, the guy's going to be a freak of nature. I mean, that's pretty much what he is, a freak of nature. Absolute beast. Yeah. So, one of the top players.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we go up to the passing leader, Jameis Winston. We know what Jameis Winston did last season. I'm not really going to dwell on him a whole lot because, he's a guy that you can continually see improving. And a lot of haters have had to eat their words. He's changed a lot of people's minds last season with his leadership abilities, with what he's been able to do. And the things that I talked about prior to you guys being on the show, and we talked about Jameis Winston during the last draft, I said that Jameis Winston was a 2-sport guy. He was playing football and baseball. Could you imagine what Jameis Winston could do if he's only playing one sport? We have glimpses of that right now, where this kid is focused on football. 535 attempts, 312 completions with 4,042 yards of offense. This is what Tampa's needed. This has been a long time coming. And what Jameis Winston is going to be able to do now, he's going to have a little bit more of a free reign with this offense per Dirk Cutter. So I'm hoping that the 22 TDs goes up and the 15 interceptions goes down. That's my hope for this upcoming season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be real quick about Jameis. The guy's a leader of men, a winner, just great football player. I mean, not much more can be said. He's going to continue to get better. The guy loves the game. He's a football savant, genius on the field. He's going to be able to, I think this year, he's going to be able to do more as far as being to audible, make checks at the line. He was already doing that last year, but just as far as enhancing everything, he's going to be able to see things that he wasn't able to see last year, and he's going to be able to take advantage, and that should increase his numbers right there. So yes, the interceptions will go down. I think the touchdowns will go up. You got Mike Evans, who we're probably going to mention here shortly, but yeah, I mean, he's just going to be a great player for years to come, and I'm happy he's on our team. That's all I got to say.
So now we jump over here to the rushing leader, Doug Martin. Doug Martin, 288 attempts for 1,402 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 4 fumbles. I think Doug Martin rededicated himself to the game, and he came out and he did a lot of good things to help this team win. I'm excited to have Doug Martin back. I'm happy that ownership decided that he was worth re-signing, and I think he's a key part of this offense, and he needed to be here. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, great talent, and he's just going to get better as well because second year in the offense, he's behind an offensive line that is growing, an offensive line that is physical, that wants to run block, and Doug Martin's healthy, and I think he's doing a good job of taking care of his body. He's in the best shape of his career, so I mean, more yards, and I think he's just on a way to. I don't know if he'll get more than 1,400, but I think he'll be right up there, near that mark.
I have questions about that. I think with the emergence of Charles Sims, who's our second guy, with 107 attempts, 529 yards, and 1 fumble, he's very sure-handed. I think that Charles Sims is going to take a lot of the load off of Doug Martin, which is going to allow him to expand his career a whole lot more. I think Charles Sims is a great change of pace back. He's a guy that's very underrated throughout the NFC South, especially the NFC South and the rest of the NFL. I don't think that defensive coordinators game plan for him, but I think as he continues to get comfortable in his offense, they're going to have to take notice of Charles Sims. So our number 3 guy, and we've already mentioned him, believe it or not, is none other than Jameis Winston with 54 attempts for 213 yards. And we're talking about 6 TDs and 3 fumbles. Now, before I'm going to preface this by going back to all those haters that were making fun of Jameis Winston for his sub 5 40 run. He was running like a 4.9 40 or something like that. And he was getting a Jordan face and all this other stuff. And you know what? Nobody was talking about Marcus Mariota doing this and this and this. This guy was making plays with his legs. He was willing this team to win and putting this team in a better position to score. So my hat's off to Jameis Winston. I didn't expect to see him in a number 3 position in rushing.
Yeah, I mean, there's straight line speed, and then there's football speed, and Jameis Winston has football speed. The guy he's a playmaker. I mean, there's not much more you can say. He's going to make plays. I mean, however he can get it done, he's going to make it happen. And it showed last year. Yeah, I mean, 540, who cares? I mean, the guy, he can run. He made plays at FSU running the football. I mean, he's going to make it happen in the NFL. It's plain and simple.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So, there we go with our rushing leaders. And the guy that I know that you want to talk about, and, I wasn't as frustrated with him as everybody else was, but it's Mike Evans. And Mike Evans ended up with 74 receptions for 1,206 yards. He could have easily been in a conversation for one of the best wide receivers last season had he not had all the drops that he had. Now, all I'm going to say is, in the grand scheme of things, Mike Evans hasn't been playing football as long as a lot of other players have been playing. And for what he's able to do, 1,206 yards as a down year is amazing. I'm just going to say it is amazing. Yeah. So, we have a lot to look forward to with this guy and what he's capable of doing. And what are your thoughts on Mike Evans?
Oh, I think he's gonna bounce back big this year. I think he's gonna be a top 5 receiver when it's all said and done, when his career's over. The guy's a legit talent. I mean, again, just his physical nature, 6'5", 230. That's hard to stop. You can't stop that, especially. And then he has speed to go along with it. He's going to be making plays, and now his repertoire with Jameis is a lot better. Their chemistry is on point. They've been working a lot this offseason. So I think the sky's the limit again for him and a lot of players on offense. And I think he's going to be making a lot of plays, especially now since he's in year 2 of the offense. He's going to be counted on a lot more. And again, you have a healthy Vincent Jackson, hopefully. So I think that's going to take pressure off of him. But again, Mike Evans, I don't think we should be discouraged at all. I don't think the drops are going to be a problem in the future. I think he's going to be one of the more consistent receivers in the NFL for a long time, and hopefully for the Buccaneers for a long time.
Absolutely. And right below him, this was a real shocker for me, was Charles Sims. Once again, Mr. Versatility. 51 receptions for 561 yards, 4 TDs and 1 drop. This guy's got nice hands. And that's all I can really say is he's got nice hands. And the only person that was close to him would be Vincent Jackson with 1 drop. So this kid, I really believe they're getting ready to expand his role on this offense because he's a weapon. He's he had the injury his rookie season. I get that. But he came back and he's shown what he's possibly capable of doing. And I'm looking forward to seeing him. He's a guy on offense that I can't wait to watch him. So, on receiving, what did you think of what Charles Sims was able to accomplish last season?
I'm very excited. I think Charles Sims. He's one of my favorite players just because he reminds me of a modern day Michael Pittman. I don't know if Bucs fans remember Michael Pittman, but the guy was really good hands, could make plays out of the receiving, out of the backfield. And Charles Sims reminds me of that, where he's just a mismatch nightmare. He can get on a linebacker and burn him deep. He can, do the screen game very well. Very patient runner as well. He likes to set up his blocks, and then he just explodes. So I think he's going to have a bigger role. I know the coaching staff is really excited about him and how they can use him. I know Cutter showed a little bit of what he could do last year. I don't think he was able to show all that he could do. So I think he's going to be utilized more. You're going to see him more on the outside this year, where he can line up in the slot, or even, one-on-one against, a linebacker or something like that. So I'm very excited. I'm excited to have him on the team as well. I think he's just a great addition. Yeah, a great addition. And a lot of fans fans didn't like him when we drafted him, but
I know, right? It made sense to me.
Yeah. You need playmakers on offense. You need guys that can make people miss and score big plays. And you look at the biggest plays from last year, I think he had pretty much all of them. So, you need guys like that on your offense for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll go ahead and we'll kind of round this out real quick. Vincent Jackson ended up with 33 receptions, 543 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 drop. Vincent Jackson means so much to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And in this era, with this team doing what they've done and having subpar seasons, he's been one of the few bright spots on this team. And what he does for the Tampa Bay community is amazing. I mean, Jameis Winston is following in those footsteps, but what Vincent Jackson does year in and year out for the Tampa Bay community is amazing. And I'm just happy that he is still a Buccaneer.
Yeah, absolutely. I was one of the guys that wanted him to be back. He's just a leader. He's very important to this offense. He's huge on third downs. Just very consistent. Brings great work ethic every day. He loves the game of football again, and very important player for this team. And hopefully he can stay healthy. I think he will. He hasn't really been injured. I think last year was just some fluke injuries. I think he had the same injury to the same knee in the same year, so that usually doesn't happen. So I think he's going to bounce back. I don't look for huge numbers, but I think he can just be a guy where, he's always there and he
The
makes the offense
possession.
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Right on.
And then, holding up the end here, and we know that he was injured for most of the season, is
Mm-hmm.
Austin Safarian-Jenkins with 21
Mm-hmm.
receptions for 338 yards. He had 4 drops, but he had 4 TDs.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy that, if he could play up to his potential,
Mm-hmm.
Tampa's offense is going to be scary.
Mm-hmm.
Just based on what he's
Mm-hmm.
able to do in blocking downfield, his blocking
Mm-hmm.
ability, period, is just it's head and shoulders above the rest of the tight ends. And another guy that's not mentioned on here, but Cameron Brate is a guy who's slowly but surely coming along, and I think he's going to definitely be an added addition to this offense as well. A lot
He's
of
going to be a
guys
starter.
that were a lot of guys that were injured, like Kenny Bell, like Lewis Murphy, guys that could have been difference makers had they been 100% throughout the season. I expect to see a lot of big things out of both of those guys. So, when you look at Tampa, top to bottom, and we've gone over the defense, we can go a little bit more in depth on offense the next time. But I really expect big things from this team. I think that they're trending in the right direction with ownership now, with the general manager and what he's able to do now that he has full reins. This will definitely be we'll know for sure by the end of the season, going into next season, how good these drafts have been through Jason Light. But from what we're seeing right now, I have nothing but positive things to say about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I can guarantee some things for this season. One, you're not going to see blowouts. We're not going to get blown out by any opponent because we're going to be prepared. We'll be prepared for every game. I guarantee that. This coaching staff is really detailed. You're going to see lots of effort. You're not going to see this team give up. So those are good things to watch out for. I think we're going to be disciplined. The penalties will go down. I'm calling that right now. They're not going to have it. If you're going to have penalties, you're not going to play. So they're going to be just motivated, hardworking group that just leaves it on the field, and I think it's going to be exciting to watch. And again, this team has a lot of talent, and I'm excited. Let's go. Let's get it started.
Yeah. Can we start tomorrow?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's just been and it's been very maddening for me because all I really have are watching the games from the last few seasons, which have been for the most part very depressing. So I'll watch a game, I'll pick a game and watch it, and I'm ready for this season. I'm ready for this to get started, and I know that this team is going to be a great improvement over last year's team.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And again, I'll wrap it up with, the defense as a whole. I think, again, we were talking earlier about third downs, getting off the field on third down. A lot of their issues was, just penalties overall on third down. We had a lot of penalties on third down that cost us games, that allowed teams to drive more and get, touchdowns. It ended up leading to touchdowns. And we got to be better, as far as getting off the field, and we got to be able to keep them out of the end zone. And I think we will, just because we're going to be a more attack heavy as far as blitzing. Our scheme overall is just going to be get after the quarterback and make them make decisions overall quicker. So I think that's going to help us.
Well, Michael, I want to thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate your insight. And folks, anybody that's watching the show, give their blog a look. I really love the articles. I think the articles are very beneficial if you're trying to figure out what Tampa is going to be bringing to this 2016 season. These guys are the guys to check out. Real Bucs Talk. And, I know we have our regulars. You can go to 620. You can go to a lot of other places and get Bucs information. But these guys are talking about different stories that you're not hearing in other places. They're talking about players that you're not really hearing about. I think it's beneficial going into camp because you can read about these guys and you can say, oh, okay, I know a little bit about him. And guys to look for that could possibly make this team and make the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a better team than they were last season. So are there any parting thoughts for you? Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, and we'll wrap this bad boy up.
Yeah, I mean, again, thank you, Gene, for having me on. Yeah, I mean, Real Bucs Talk, we're excited for the season coming up. We got a lot more to bring. Again, if you love, we cover it all. We cover the draft, we cover free agency, player breakdown, game breakdown. And again, we're just getting ready for training camp. We're going to be at training camp. Probably we're going to try to be there at least 2 practices a week. So we're going to have more breakdowns. Just give us, provide our thoughts and what we're seeing out there. And we're just excited to get started and for the season to start. And I'm excited. Come follow us at Real Bucs Talk. It's going to be fun. It's a fun year coming up.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to end this by saying thank you to everybody that checks out the show. I really appreciate your, following me and listening to my ramblings at times. But I'm a true Bucs fan, and I want this team to win. I mean, right now my thing is wins and losses. I want to see wins. I want to see this team going into the playoffs. I want to be able to go purchase a ticket and go to a playoff game. I mean, that is something that I'm looking forward to. And I honestly believe that, everybody hang in there. It's going to get better. Jason Light is a guy, it looks like he wants to win now. Jameis Winston wants to win now. You've got players on this team that are about winning. They want to win. So I believe that anything's possible. You look at what Carolina did with a 15-1 season after losing their number 1 receiver. I think anything's possible in the NFL. Don't listen to whatever network you listen to because these teams have to go out and play these games. This may not be the same NFL team you saw in 2015 that you're facing in 2016. So please keep that in mind when you're talking about, oh, well, I don't know if I want to go to this game because it may be a blowout. You don't know until you go and watch the game. So, folks, love one another, hang in there, enjoy the season. Let's try to keep everything as positive as we can and go Bucs. That's it for me.
Go Bucs.
Your guy, super heavyweight. My special guest, Michael Pless. I appreciate you, man. And we are out of here. Remember, if you haven't heard it anywhere here, other than here, Buc What You Heard. We're out.